have to leave before it's over. I'd like to stay, and I had somebody coming up to look after my son tonight. He's 13, and he's at home alone, but he hunted me out the door. He was sort of like out to go, but I've never left him on his own at night time. I just don't do that as a dad, you know. And so I'm going to be, but the next time I come here, I'll be coming here as many times as I can from now on, and I'll stay till the end. But anyway, so yes. I'm sure you're all familiar with our conscious journey, this need to understand spirit, consciousness, mind, this ghostly feeling within, call it what you will. My life has been dedicated to that quest. From the earliest age, I've been driven to, I don't know why, I just felt this gravity, this pull to go looking, to know, you know, to go beyond the face of things. And a couple of weeks ago, I watched Ireland play England in the rugby. Anyway, but what I remember most was just before the game began, a man called Chris Hoy, you know, Sir Chris Hoy. He walked out onto the field to hand over the ball to the ref, and if you're familiar with his story, he has terminal prostate cancer, and he's a 6-time Olympic gold medalist, you know, a very fit human being, and he came out and spoke about it, and he touched people all over the world, and it was a beautiful moment. And what was so beautiful was when he walked down to the field, and we've seen this many times, this feeling of communion. The crowd, you could feel the love coming down from the stadium, the roof of the stadium, and the millions watching around the world. And in that moment, everybody moved towards the core. You know, in that moment, the game became a secondary buzz, an ice cream, a bag of popcorn. It was irrelevant, okay? Every single human being that was there focused their attention on that one being and held him up. And what we were recognizing was his sovereignty, was his spirit, was life, the fragility and beauty of life, his children, his wife, his family, his friends, his relationships, his journey, his knowledge, what he gives to us, what he gave to us, inspired and so on. And that's the story of every human being. Even the broken ones have a story, and that's beautiful. But the point was, in that moment, we moved towards the core. And when we went to the core, this gravity pulled us into it, okay? We didn't have to communicate with each other, going, are we all going to do that? It just happens instantly, okay? This gravity, the spiritual gravity pulls us all in. And in that moment, you could feel humanity. That's our highest state. That's the highest state of spirit. There's something beautiful about that. And that stadium was full with a myriad people, you know, people who were spiritual, people who were atheist and secular, people, and, you know, people, different religious mindsets, people who were, like I said, atheists, didn't care. But in that moment, there was communion, you know, and if everybody in the world was watching that moment, we would have had an 8 billion head communion. That's our highest state. And yet we know our highest state, you know, we're brought to the core, yet we are a divided species, you know, we're broken, we're scattered, we have so many problems, so the big existential crisis we're all feeling. And even though we have that core that brings us together, this core, you know, core values, core belief systems, you know, my child is at my core right now. One phone call from him and I'm gone, okay? That's my core. He's at my core. The core is everything, how we love, how we hold each other up. And yet we know the depth of that core, that feeling, but we don't give it much light. Okay, we do sometimes when we're meditating, okay? We meditate is to move towards the core. We meditate and we let the world and the ego go, and we sit there and we and do our thing and we feel better about ourselves. Not everybody meditates, but you know what I mean. We bring ourselves to the core, and sometimes we do it in groups and we come out feeling elated and we have a sense of communion, but then we drift back into our scattered lives, and you know, we're all feeling lost in the world, and we all know there should be something more, and that's our core, but we don't seem to be able to unite. And as much as we all talk about love doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be strong enough to unite us because we're a scattered head. And you know, we all have national identities, you know, different cultural identities, and there's a beautiful sort of idiosyncratic package of culture that comes with every culture. And it's beautiful, but there's still a division among people. We don't seem to be able to come together, and yet we do know all how to reach our highest self. So the philosophers have been on a journey for all of us. Most people are not familiar. The work of the philosopher, you know, your work comes into fruition over centuries. If your work is meant to be heard, it comes in. And I carry people who have died centuries ago, and they're here in my tongue right now speaking to you. Immanuel Kant and Heidegger and so on, Wittgenstein and Henry Thoreau and Emerson and so on. So many beautiful minds. Minds that have shaped the alphabet for us. A, B, C. We all use the English alphabet if we speak English. And who shaped that? A bunch of nerds sitting behind closed doors going A, B, trying to put the alphabet together. And you know, it came into fruition. It came into fruition centuries later. You know, it slowly just permeated. The permutations that brought that into play. Permutations permeating into permutations into permutations. And here we are now using it fluently. Okay, so the work of philosophers take time, and we all have concepts like concept and complexity and dimension because of philosophers. And one of the many studies of philosophy is phenomenology. And that's what I'm going to talk to you now about, a little bit about phenomenology. That which unites us at the core. Okay, that, and by the way, I'm just waxing lyrical, I'm just streaming, I know my work, so I go where I go, and it goes where it goes. And I've got about 15 minutes to talk now on it, and then you can do a bit of Q&A if you'd like, and then I'll wrap it up. And so yes, phenomenology is one of the main branches of philosophy, and the idea, like, how do we know this ghostly feeling within? How, it's easy to find the empirical world, the world of physics and form. We can touch it, we can splice it and chop it up and hold it and get down to the atoms, and below that quantum, and we're lost again. Okay, but we have something empirical, like I said, we can touch it, but the mind is ghostly. How do we find the mind? We can't hold it, we can't touch it, we can just intuit it. Okay, but one thing the philosophers were fascinated by was our ability to understand structure and order. Okay, that chair has an order to it. We understand form and structure. When I laid down the fact that we all came to the core in that stadium, okay, there was structure to that because all of us can unite around it. Okay, something brought us together subconsciously that we're following a structural path. We couldn't understand 2 + 2 = 4. We couldn't add up our pennies. Okay, Einstein wouldn't exist unless we all had the same core and we all could follow structure. In fact, Einstein, he had said when he was asked what does he love best about our universe, he said, it seems to be the case that we are born with the apparatus that actually fits into the universe. Okay, it's like a spanner and it's trying to lock onto a nut. Okay, it's like we're trying to lock onto something, and that fascinated Einstein and it fascinated all the philosophers. So in relation to phenomenology, phenomenology in part is about the structures of the mind and how we're able to lock on to reality. And one of the points in this is about universals. There's people I can take from different countries, Colombia and Brazil here tonight, and there's people who are from different countries, right, and England, from around the world. Okay, but there's something universal in the structure, irrespective of the phonetic and the language structures, the syntax you use, irrespective of the colourful languages we all use, there's something universal at the core, okay? And that's what phenomenology addresses. The idea of communion is universal, okay? When I spoke about the stadium, if I said the same thing in the language, the Colombian language, I would have arrived at the same communion. If I spoke Russian to you right now since I began and we all spoke Russian, we'd all be nodding our head about the communion part. Okay, if I spoke Chinese, we'd all be going, that's right, we all come to communion, you see. So there's something about the core that lets us move around structure, that unites us all. And it's very, very important that we ground ourselves in universals, in universal truths, because without universal truths, okay, we'll remain scattered as a species. We need what we call an ontological foundation, a core foundation that we can hold on to. And then we can all live and dance and love and have our friends and live our lives. Like there's core values for driving on the road, okay? As long as we don't drunk drive and we behave and drive accordingly and we're accountable for one another, those rules work. And it doesn't take away your individual identity. You can get off the road wherever you want and go to whatever party you want to go to. That's your colours. Okay, but we all are able to follow structure and road signs, and we follow the ABC signs. Okay, so right now, hopefully you're following me along this structural path too. Okay, so anyway, let me just talk so quickly about some of the modes we use in the mind to give you universal truths about how we operate, and then the idea that we might be able to unite around this conscious, structured I, if you will. Is everybody with me so far, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, one of the many modes we use, a mode is like, my hand is a mode for picking up objects, okay? The mode, and for maybe playing an instrument, I can touch and pick up things with a delicate touch, yeah? And so the mode is think of it as a tool of the mind, okay? And a mode allows the mind to go into structure and analyze what it's seeing. So the first mode I want to talk about is a very familiar mode, adding. Okay, most people don't give any time to the mode of addition. Okay, you were adding up what I was saying tonight about communion. Okay, we could all concur on it. You all subconsciously were running with me without communicating with one another. We were all adding up the same picture. Most people associate adding with adding up their pennies. Check your bank account and add up. Okay, but you're trying to add up what I'm saying. Okay, we all know World War II was an abomination because we can add up the variables. Okay, we understand that we are evolutionarily tracked. We've come up along. We come out of fish into chimp and into alphabet. Okay, and we can add that up. Okay, so adding is actually a phenomenal tool of the mind. Okay, adding is a phenomenal tool. We couldn't debate this, we couldn't discuss this if you couldn't add up what I was saying. We couldn't talk about all the different concepts of life, like love. What does love mean? We tried to add it up. What does spirit mean? We tried to add it up. Okay, what does science mean to us? What's medicine mean to us? Okay, there was two people gave a beautiful talk tonight about the meat industry, and that needs to be heard too. And I was sitting there trying to add it all up. okay? Because I was running with this configuration. I was trying to find communion. They were trying to bring us into communion with their ideas. And there's something high and beautiful about that. Even if you didn't agree with everything that was being said, the fact that there's two human beings trying to speak on behalf of slugs and ants and cows and foxes and chickens and ostriches and every fucking thing else is stunning, okay? So we can add up that perspective. So like I said, we can, if I keep going for the next 10 days talking and you stay with me, you'll be adding up as we go. Okay, so adding is a phenomenal mode of the mind, and we need to give it more life. Okay, so that's one mode of the mind. Another mode, and there's a whole package of modes, if you will. There's a whole constellation of modes. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, the next mode I'm just going to pull out here is evaluation. Okay, evaluation, to evaluate. Okay, you're trying to give value. You're trying to evaluate what is being said here. Okay, we spoke about the communion, just to keep using that reference. Okay, the communion with Chris Hoy. You gave value to that. You evaluated what I said, you added it up, okay, the value, and you concurred, okay? See, we can all move around that. So to understand what I'm saying, no matter what language you speak, at a subconscious level, this is a universal truth, you all add and evaluate. Can everybody agree on that so far? Yeah. And if you don't agree on it, that's fine. But to not agree in it and to debunk me means you'd have to add up what I was saying and evaluate it so you could debunk what I was saying. So it's tautologically airtight, meaning we can't get out. We break down to molecules. We can't get out of the bag. It's not up for debate. We break down to molecules. We all have red blood. There's certain things that unite us and there's no debate about it. It's about actually aligning by it rather than debating it. Because we debate things endlessly, we never get anywhere. So it's better to lock ourselves down into what we are. So yes, adding and evaluation. Another mode of the mind, and like I said, there's many, this is one more, is identification. Okay, identity is a big mode. Look at all little human beings, all of us here trying to identify. What's your identity? Okay, what do your clothes say about you? What do your beads say about you? Your tats? What do your shoes say about? What's my identity? Okay, what's this in the ugliest mirror of all? We all get lost in the vanity mirror trying to find our fucking identities. Okay, and it's a very scary place to be. Nobody's ever happy in that mirror. Okay, the vanity mirror. So there's something innately at the core of self. What am I? Okay, what am I? And we all know, as much as we all like to get dolled up and go out and meet our friends and party, and that's beautiful. There's something, humans have a right to paint themselves and go carnival and have a great time. There's nothing wrong with that. But nobody ever really seems to be grounded in their identity. Okay, and people have half-measure identities. I come from Ireland and there's half-measure, we're all Irish, but man, you're drunk or you're fucking head shouting nonsense and starting fights. I don't represent you, that doesn't represent me. I know 10 fucking great rebel songs about Ireland. I don't even know what that means, Not to undermine the whole history and the revolutions and all, I'm just saying, it all seems to be so scattered, okay, so fragmented, nothing ever, people in Ireland are divided, people in Colombia are divided, class systems were fucking divided, okay, I identify as being working class, I'm actually transcendental class, but for the sake of context, I transcend it, I'm above all that class, I'm a classification of phenomenology and so on, and music and a lot of other classifications. I don't reduce myself to such silly notions as upper, middle and working class, but for the sake of context, okay, do I identify with being working class? Does somebody identify with being upper class or middle class? What is our identity? And these identification packages seem to divide us, okay, and leaves us lost in ourselves, okay, it creates an existential void within. Okay, people who are snobs feel ashamed sometimes of being a snob. It's easy to bring them down to size, okay? And people who are broken at the bottom feel ashamed of being who they are. These magnificent fucking people who can move to the core and find communion with the whole species and every single animal on the planet, and yet they're being reduced to begging on the street and snobs looking down on them. Okay, we're looking down on giants. And how do we let this happen? How did giants let this happen to giants? That's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? Okay, doesn't that add up? Okay, actually that doesn't add up. Okay, that doesn't add up, okay? But it does add up that it doesn't add up, okay? When you evaluate it and look at all the values placed, it adds up that it doesn't add up, okay? So once again, the modes are in play. So we can identify with that. We can identify with the giant being left on the street, okay? We can identify the fact that we have core that makes something gigantic about us and something beautiful. But what is our identity? Well, when we break down to the atoms, we can identify molecules, we can identify DNA and blood cells, and we keep moving down through the rabbit hole. We're trying to identify ourselves, okay? And we get lost in quantum, and the body seems to disappear. It just doesn't add up anymore. We can't find the value, and we can't evaluate it. But something about us is identifying that, okay? Now, I need many hours to really get into the crux of all this subject, but the reality is this: in a hippie kind of way, we all know the body is not what we are, okay? This is the dissipating suit. I'm a meta ghost sitting in a dissipating suit. There it is, there it is, there it is, there it's gone again. How do I identify it? It's in process, okay? We can't see it, but that's what's happening. It's just dissipating, and like bubbles coming off me. I'm gone again. I wasn't here. I'm gone again. You know, there's so many variables to it, but we cannot identify the body. When you get into metaphysics, into physics, into empiricism, any field of science, we cannot identify with body. Okay, it's an idealized state. So it's a kind of scary concept, identification, because we can't identify body, but I can identify with the fact that I'm a set of modes and I can evaluate and add that up and identify with it. And identify the fact that I use modes, and the modes allow me to abstract and see that I am not body, and so on. Does that add up so far? Mm-hmm. Okay, fabulous. So I'll just talk about one more, I'll talk about one more mode for now, unification. Okay, unification is a beautiful mode. The idea that we want to unify, okay? The idea we want to unify, that's a circle. You can all unify that, okay? That's the ceiling. You can unify our positions. Without unification, we couldn't unify what was being said here tonight. And we are looking for unification, universals. Unification, universals. Universals to ground ourselves in, rather than drown ourselves in. We're drowning right now because we don't have universals, okay? Existentially drowning. Without universals, Einstein couldn't have arrived at E equals mc squared. Okay, Copernicus or Galileo, all their work was based around trying to unify a certain position. Okay, trying to unify. All our problems on the planet are about we're unable to unify ourselves. We're unable to unify the collective head. Okay, without the ability to add, evaluate, and add, identify what we're adding and to abstract it and then to unify it, we're lost as a species. Okay, we're lost as a species. But what matters is that these modes are in play. And like I said, I'll talk about two more. It's just extension and expansion, okay? Intuitively, if you're moving with me and you're evaluating and you're trying to intuitively add up with what is being said here, okay? And I speak quickly, hopefully you're staying with me. You're extending into and expanding with, okay? And you categorize, another mode, we categorize, okay? We're categorizing, I lay down love and working class, that's a category. And cell, that's a category. DNA, that's a category. And metaphysics, that's a category. And spirituality, that's a category. And communion, that's a category. And Chris Hoy, man, love, sovereignty, beauty, children, family, categories, okay? These are categories of thought. So that's another mode of the mind. And you can't stay with me and add me up unless you're categorizing as we go. Unless you're identifying the categories as we roll, okay? Evaluating what's being said, trying to identify with them and unify perspective. That is what's going on in all of you tonight, okay? That is what's going on. Now, it's subconscious because when you get up in the morning, you're going to start categorizing your day. The kettle, I need toast, I need coffee. That's a category. Okay, you don't even think about it. When you make coffee, you don't put beans into the pot. Okay, because it's not part. You don't identify it because it doesn't add up to coffee. You see, so these modes, when you get onto the road and go to the airport, oh my God, you categorize the time and the distance and so on, and you start to evaluate. I'm going to be late, and so you're making calculations all the time. Calculate, compute more modes of the mind. Anyway, so let me just wrap it up and hopefully there'll be some Q&A.
Please.
So, sorry, just want to say, there's a lot to pack in and it's a heavy subject. And if you want to know more, like I said, just zap I have 450 YouTube fans, followers, yeah. Beyonce has 450 million, 450 I have, anyway. Building my empire. Nobody wants to talk about axioms. That's the trouble with the world. Nobody wants to talk about the beautiful subject of philosophy and how beautiful it is. So, anyway, my work has been dedicated, like I said, all the work of all the great philosophers is in my mind. I just don't spend all the time quoting them all to sound flash. I just get on with it. I don't quote Bruce Lee, I just do the Kung Fu. This is the Kung Fu of the mind, yeah? And I've isolated so many modes. There's a whole, we'll say 50 or 70 modes, yeah, and there's more, okay? But if you consider all the modes together as a single constellation set, and this is the upshot, this is the punch, okay? You know the story. You know that song, the leg bone connected to the knee bone, that hip bone. Think of it as a constellation. Evaluation connected to categorization connected to addition. They're all one big set. And forget the languages we speak, forget the cultural differences and all that. At your core, there's a set of systemic modes in play. And when considered in meditation, to meditate around it, to move your mind around it, to feel them in the core, it's like a structured meditation, yeah? You can see the eye of consciousness, a skeleton structure of consciousness that is within all. And it's within this that makes the evaluations about Chris Hoy and brings us together in communion. And it is in this that there's no class division. There's no cultural division. There's no Russian or Irish or English in here. Okay, this is a pure state. This is the conscious eye. In this eye, it has magnitude, the magnitude to understand the stadium coming together, the magnitude of understanding that we came out of fish into alphabet, into abstraction, into metaphysics, the magnitude of that. The magnitude of medicine, from sticking slugs on our faces and so on to suck out poison, to MRI scans. The magnitude of that. The magnitude of trying to give life and love to every animal on the planet. The magnitude of trying to come together through literature. The magnitude of creating alphabets. There's magnitude in that. And this is all at our core. This is what we feel. And I believe this is the all-seeing systemic eye. The observational eye. This eye, the structure of this eye gives us all set universal structure. Yeah, does that make sense? Does that all add up?
Yeah.
So maybe a few quick Q&A and I'll wrap it up then. So yeah.
No chance, no chance.
No, okay.
No
I'm going to make it. Okay.
Wow.
Don't forget a question is a short question,
Yeah.
not a debate. Okay?
Of course.
I just trying to.
I've got one.
That was
okay.
amazing.
So,
That was amazing.
we're okay. Yes, thank you very much. But okay, we are high. Very quick. 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
Yeah,
no problem.
so
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Very quick.
Can we stay in touch with you?
Yes, there.
Is that through that
Yeah,
message?
and you'll be able to message me there. And if you message me there, then I can send you on my email and so on. I'll send you on the details.
Yeah,
so,
you can
yeah.
find his Instagram on that.
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
What's
yeah.
your name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why
Yeah.
not? Yeah.
Where are you from?
Ireland, yeah.
In Ireland.
Yes, oh, Tipperary.
Tipperary.
Temple, a town called
And you are
Temple.
this boy.
Okay.
Yeah, Irish.
Irish.
What's the
Irish
crack, boy?
boy.
That's the crack.
Anyway, the question I want to...
Okay. Sorry. The
question.
there, please. Yeah.
Wait, he wants
You
to
sit
ask the
down.
question.
He's going to ask his question.
Okay, but sit down and answer the question.
Is
Yeah.
it right?
No, no.
Okay. Are you good?
I wanted to ask face
All right.
So you said about the communion of 8 billion people
Yeah.
focusing on that one man,
Yeah.
showing the empathy for his, whatever he was going through.
Yes.
I'm a little bit of contrarian. This was an amazing talk. I'm not dismissing it.
It's okay, yeah, you can debunk it if you want.
I love, almost everything you said.
Yeah.
It's. I'll have to re-listen to it to kind of understand it better. But my question is, what if there was a union of psychopaths in that crowd?
I'll answer. I'll just get a drink of water here before I answer it. Yeah.
Give him the bottle. Give him the
I have to
bottle.
thank you.
Vodka?
I'm sure there was psychopaths in our world. Psychopathy is a problem, just like schizophrenia, okay? The mind doesn't seem to be developed, the frontal cortex. We don't know enough about the brain yet to know that, but we can make evaluating, adding up, calculations of things. No doubt there was some lunatic, but that lunatic loved the rugby, you know what I mean? And we have to find a way to contain and understand the different pathologies of mind, psychopathy in particular, okay? And right now, psychopathy, the psychopathy and Machiavellian thought and narcissism are being studied, and sadism, they seem to be a mix, and a very, very dangerous mix, and they're capable of chopping up children, so they need to be touched and looked at carefully and removed from society if necessary, because they're a danger to us. But we are an evolving head. We actually have this idea we're a finished species. We are far from it. We're barely off the tree and barely into alphabet and at the interface of metaphysical door. We don't know where the fuck we are as a species, okay? Only right now philosophy is starting to catch up in itself and we're realizing how complex the whole fucking thing is, and we have millions of years to go before we arrive at our full head and full communion. But we won't get there unless we go there. Yeah, and so we have to, make understanding. Even the King of England, that snobby world. If he was here, I'd give him a hug. I wouldn't put up with his nonsense, and I would pull it apart and debunk it. I'd evaluate it and blah blah blah. But then I drop the core into him and go, you're not a king. You're a beautiful human being like me, and we're equal. And we are equal because our one measure is not your hat or my shoe. It's the core. Okay, that's what makes us equal. So your flash car and your palaces and your psychopathy, all those things. It's the core that brings us together. So yes. Another question?
Okay.
It needs a deeper answer, by the way. Yes,
Yeah.
Mine is very quick.
Yeah.
Very quick question. Who is your favourite philosopher and why?
Okay. Thank you for that question. So I have. There's two that are equal. So I'll tell you. Immanuel Kant, and Henry Thoreau. Okay. So Henry Thoreau, if you like, he painted our species in as a butterfly. Okay. He painted our beauty. He painted our communion. Okay, he is in my heart. He is in every atom of. He's in my shoes. Henry Thoreau. Gandhi was influenced by Henry Thoreau. Like civil disobedience was the groundwork for Gandhi's Revolution was written by Henry Thoreau, and he always quoted Thoreau and so on. You know, nations, what are nations? Tartars and Huns and Chinamen, like insects they swarm. The historian strives in vain to make them memorable. That's Thoreau. Okay, you know, the nations, what are they? And we're always trying to make them memorable. You know, we fought the Battle of Waterloo, or we fought, that's all that shite. You know, what's memorable is we come out of fish and here we are having conversation. That's bigger than any of their histories. So yes, and then and Kant, Immanuel Kant, 250 years ago, autistic savant, he wanted to know the structures, the a priori, synthetic a priori structures of the mind. That's heavy language. It took me 10 years to grab that concept. But he wanted to know the mind and he broke it down. In fact, my foundation of what I speak about is Immanuel Kant. They're my two favorite philosophers. Yeah. I'll take one more question. Yeah.
One more question.
One more question, yeah.
Sorry.
Does anybody else, because you had one, but if not, then you can go. Okay, you can go, yeah. Sorry.
Are you channeling this from another dimension?
That's a good question. Well,
Because you keep talking with your hands, and all I can see is energy.
oh yeah, it is. I do talk with my hands. It's a rhythm. If I speak quickly. If I have to slow down, I lose the rhythm. Yeah. So I do. But I don't know what channel. We all channel, and from a dimension, we don't even know how many dimensions we are in. Okay. But I do wax lyrical. I just do go. But the thing is, I know my work. Okay. If we go into linguistics or psychology or sociology or whatever history, I can bring the modes into every aspect of reality. But 20-minute conversation is only so much I can say. So anyway, look at. Yami, thank you for having me here. Yami, thank you for calming. But anyway, he gets all the hugs. It's not fair. You know?
Okay, should we ask Jap to come back again?
Come back.